On today's show, it looks like the Cavs might be getting Sam Merrill back from injury on Monday against the Orlando Magic. We'll talk about what that means and why continuity finally has been on the Cavs side for a little bit, and it's no coincidence that they've started to look better. I'll tell you why on today's edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, everybody. My name is Danny Cunningham, and I cover the Cleveland Cavaliers over at my Substack, The Inside Shot, and you're listening to another edition of Locked On Cavs, a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network in all of America. You can find this show the same place you find any other Locked On podcast. That's Apple, that's Spotify, that is YouTube as well. If you're watching right now, please do us a favor, hit the thumbs up button for us and click the notification bell. And no matter where you are listening to Locked On Cavs, make sure you are subscribed. That is the very best way to help grow this show. And today's edition of Locked On Cavs is brought to you by FanDuel. It's the last call for football and on FanDuel. And if you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets back if you win. On today's show, we will be talking about some injury updates on the positive side for the Cleveland Cavaliers. That has been a rarity this year, but there are some good injury updates to share. We will talk about some lineup data because the starting five that the Cavs have put forth for 4 consecutive games, which has only happened one time this year, has been really, really good. And then we will, of course, dive into why this week upcoming is a very important one for the Cleveland Cavaliers. But I want to start with the injury updates because the Cavs take on the Orlando Magic on Monday night at Rocket Arena. It is the second of 2 consecutive games against the Orlando Magic. I talked late last week about how important these games were just in terms of looking at the standings and taking on a team that is very close to the Cavs, in close proximity to the Cavs in the Eastern Conference, that this is an important stretch for the Cavs. And that doesn't change. And the game on Monday night is an important one. And that's why the win on Saturday, despite the fact the Cavs were as shorthanded as they were, was a really, really impressive one, especially when you consider being the second night of a back-to-back in their third game in 4 nights. And this game on Monday night will be the third game in 4 nights again for the Cavs, because that's how those things work when you have a back-to-back and don't have 2 days off. But the Cavs should have a little bit more at their disposal on Monday at home than they did on Saturday on the road. And Sam Merrill, who has missed the last 5 games due to a right hand sprain, has been upgraded to questionable for this game on Monday evening. DeAndre Hunter, who did not play on Saturday because of knee soreness, also has been listed as questionable. We'll see if he plays. When somebody misses an extended period of time, the way that Sam has, I do think that then when they are upgraded from out to questionable, it feels like more of a sure thing, where I'm not sure whether or not DeAndre Hunter is going to play, but it feels like Sam Merrill at the very least is. And Sam this year has been, I think, more important to the Cavs than at any other point throughout his time in Cleveland. Part of that is because of the development as a basketball player that he's made. Like, I just think that the guy he is right now is a better basketball player than what he was last year or what he was 2 years ago. Like, when he's been healthy, when he's been on the floor, we have seen Sam do more things, right? He's not just been, hey, go stand in the corner and shoot threes, or run off this pin down and shoot a 3 on the wing. Like, he's been empowered to have the basketball in his hands a little bit more. He's running a little bit of pick and roll. Some of that's been by necessity because the Cavs have not been healthy at all this season, but some of it is because Sam has become capable of doing that stuff. And in preparing for his return, I wanted to look at what some of the numbers say, because like the eye test says, when the Cavs have Sam Merrill, they're a much better team than when they don't have Sam Merrill. So far this season, Sam has unfortunately missed 23 games. That is around half the season, right? So he's missed 23 games because of 4 different injuries. He had a left hip injury, a right hip injury, I believe a right ankle, maybe left ankle. I know it was an ankle. I don't remember which one. And then the right hand injury that has really taken most of this time from him. So the last 5 games that he's missed have been with the right hand issue. And prior to that, he missed 14 straight games because of the right hand issue. That was way back in November and bled into the month of December, that he was just unavailable for the Cavs. So in those 23 games, the Cavs are 11-12. And is this entirely because of Sam? No, like, they have missed other guys. Not having Darius Garland for part of that mattered. Not having Evan Mobley for part of that when he had his calf strain mattered. Not having Jarrett Allen for part of that when he had his finger injuries mattered. Like all of those things, this has not been Sam in a vacuum has caused this. But I do think that the effect that Sam has is really clear to see. And I do think it's magnified because they haven't had Max Strus either. Had Max been healthy, I don't want to say Sam wouldn't have been as good, but I just don't know that he would be as important because the Cavs would have somebody that could help to fill that role. But when both of them are out, they don't really have a backup for that archetype of player. Like they have other shooting guards, but they don't have other guys that are movement shooters. They don't have other guys that stress opposing defenses the same way that Sam does. And I really think that is shown in his net rating. Like when Sam is on the floor, his net rating is a +6 this year. When he's off the floor, the Cavs net rating is, I believe it's +0.9. So like they're still keeping their heads above water. They're not falling off of a cliff, but they've not been good either, right? +6 with Sam on the floor is, I think, a really good place to be, especially for a role player. The only regular rotation player with a higher net rating on the floor and bigger difference between on and off is Donovan Mitchell. And I think that's to be expected with how good Donovan has been so far this season and just how important he is to the Cavs. And that to me does really show how important Sam has been this season for the Cavs. And when he plays, they're 16-8. They're for the season, they're 7 games above 500. They're 8 games above 500 when Sam plays. And it feels like he just has that outsized impact. And when he's not on the floor, the Cavs are a below average offense. When he is on the floor, they're an above average offense. And again, it's not all because of Sam, but he has this ability to stress opposing defenses because of how good of a shooter he is, because of how much movement he has. And like Jalen Tyson has been shooting around the same percentage, actually, I think a little bit higher of a percentage from beyond the arc, but he doesn't stress defenses the same way. And I think that is something that the Cavs have really missed. And I do want to talk about where Sam could potentially fit in starting lineup versus coming off the bench. Like, I think that's an important conversation and a very interesting conversation to have. And we'll have that coming up in segment number 2. But I just think that having him back, whether it is on Monday night or maybe it's on Wednesday night against the Lakers, if he's not ready to go on Monday, but like either way, his return is very close. That's going to mean really good things for the Cavs on both ends of the floor. Now, one of the things that I do think, and I talked about this after the Magic game on Saturday, if you missed that show, go back and listen. One of the things that I do think the Cavs have done a much better job of lately, especially during this 3-game winning streak, is they have not allowed their offense to affect their defense. Because over these past 3 games, their defensive rating, I believe, is under 100. Like they have been really, really good defensively, according to all the metrics that you can find. Again, Charlotte and against Orlando. Against the Kings, they were okay. They weren't great. The Kings did shoot a little bit above their heads, but like, and to be fair, the Hornets and the Magic shot below what their expected would have been too. But they've not allowed their offense to affect their defense because their offense hasn't been good enough. Like it's been okay. It's not been good enough. But I do think that having Sam is going to make that a little bit better in certain lineups. And I think that if they can maintain this level of defense and Sam can provide a boost to what they're doing offensively, I think that would be a really, really good thing and a very important time of the year for this to happen because the Cavs have started to string together good performances and wins. They've started to stack wins, as they're saying. The way they're playing is obviously much better than what it was. And right now, the wins and losses are the only thing that matters. They're not playing at a championship level, and that's okay right now. What they need to do is continue to stack wins. But having Sam back, I do think can help boost their offense closer to the level that it needs to be. And then, as I mentioned, DeAndre Hunter is questionable for the game on Monday. He's got right knee soreness. He was a late scratch against the Magic on Saturday. We'll see if he plays. I think he's a little bit more. I don't think the Cavs have the same challenge in replacing his productivity as they do Sam Merrill's. And then one other injury note that I wanted to touch on here is we have officially, as I record this at 9:45 on Sunday evening, we have entered the reevaluation window for Darius Garland. Now, I'm not expecting there to be an update from the Cavs tonight. Maybe there's one on Monday, maybe there's one on Tuesday, but when they put the status update out on Darius last Sunday, after his right great toe sprain, they said 7 to 10 days from that point. Well, that was 7 days ago at this point. So we have entered that time. I'm sure Kenny Atkinson will get asked about this prior to Monday's game against the Orlando Magic. But this is something that, like, I don't think a return for Darius is imminent, but I am curious what kind of update we get, like what Darius has been doing over the past week or so, how he's progressing. That's something that I do think we should learn a little bit more about at some point on Monday. I will be very interested to see what the answer is. If you really want to read into things, I think it's a good sign Darius was in Orlando and was very animated on the bench and like very engaged and involved with the team, even though he wasn't playing. Like, that's the second night of a back-to-back. It's a one-game trip. That's not necessarily a trip that an injured guy needs to be on. But for Darius, I thought just reading into things, that seemed to me like it was a good sign. So maybe we get an update on Darius's status. And I'm not expecting him to play. Obviously, he's not playing on Monday. I would be surprised if he plays on Wednesday. But then, maybe at some point when the Cavs go out west starting next weekend, we start to see Darius Garland ramp up and maybe get back on the floor. We'll have to wait and see, but hopefully we do get an update on Monday. Now, the Cavs have been winning games lately, in part because of continuity. They have had the same starting lineup for 4 straight games. That's the only time this has happened all season long. I think they should stick with it until Darius Garland gets back, and I'll tell you why next right here on Locked On Cavs. But first, today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff. The final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're picking the favorite, riding with the underdog, or building one last same-game parlay, this is the game that everyone has been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels like it's something bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from the kickoff to the final whistle. And if you're a new customer with FanDuel, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets back if you win. Make it count, because after the Super Bowl, the season is over. It's the last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com today to get started. Thank you again for making today's edition of Locked On Cavs your first listen, and thank you to those of you that make it your first listen every single day. The NBA trade deadline basically here, less than 2 weeks away. We want to give you a free month of the new Everyday Air Club to help you get ready. What the Everyday Air Club does is it gives you access to an ad-free audio feed of Locked On Cavs that's compatible with Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else you might listen to this show. And it also gives you access to a group chat to help you keep up with the chaos. The Everyday Air Club gets you access to it on Discord just for Cavs fans, plus national chats where you can hang out with fans from across the league. If you want to learn more, a link is in the show description wherever you're listening to this show. And the Cavs have had the same starting lineup for 4 games in a row for the first time this season. That starting 5 has been Donovan Mitchell, Jalen Tyson, Dean Wade, Evan Mobley, and Jared Allen. Now, that group has not been perfect, but it has been very good. And the reason why that group has been very good is because of how well the Cavs have defended teams with it. And against the Thunder, I thought they did a good job defensively. Offensively, they really struggled. And the offensive numbers for this group are not necessarily great, but the net rating is really good. And especially for a group that doesn't have a lot of time together, I think the defensive metrics are really encouraging. So when Kenny Atkinson decided to start this lineup against the Thunder 1 week ago, I went to cleaning the glass, as I do with a lot of lineups that I see that I'm just like not used to watching. And this was the case on Saturday against the Magic, where I think the Cavs played 3 or 4 lineups in the second quarter that had not played together throughout the entire season, at least not in non-mop-up duty, like not with the game still in the balance. So I always go to cleaning the glass and I'll plug the lineup in just to view the metrics. So I did that prior to the game against the Thunder and realized, oh, they've not played together yet. This is going to be a really interesting thing. And the early results have been really good, especially for a group that has so little time together. So over the past 4 games, that group of 5, again, Donovan Mitchell, Jalen Tyson, Dean Wade, Evan Mobley, and Jared Allen, they have played 124 possessions together, according to Cleaning the Glass. They have a net rating of plus 17.8 over that stretch. That is obviously really, really good. The Cavs starting lineup has been awesome, and it's been really good because it has been great defensively. That group of five, that 5-man lineup has a defensive rating. Again, 124 possessions, so it's not as if this is the largest sample size in the world. But their defensive rating over those 124 possessions is 95.9, according to Cleaning the Glass. That ranks in the 100th percentile. That is one of the best defensive lineups that has played at least 100 possessions in the NBA this season. That's an awesome thing to see. And I think a lot of that is, I do think that Jalen Tyson is trending towards being a plus defender. I think he's done a good job of not fouling nearly as much as he did earlier this season. Like, think back to opening night when he opened up and was defending Jalen Brunson, and he was called for, I think, 4 fouls in like 20 minutes. And those nights are now few and far between. I'm not saying it never happens, but it happens far less frequently than it did. So I do think that's been part of it. Like, that is, I think, been part of his rise, if you will, as a better defender. But Dean Wade has been a fantastic defender. We all know how good Evan Mobley has been defensively, and I think he's taken a step forward on that end of the floor. And then Jared Allen is what Jared Allen is, which is a very good protector of the rim. So that's why this Cavs team has been able to get off to such good starts. It's because they've opened up the game, and they've done a really good job of setting the tone defensively. And I know that the game against the Magic on Saturday night, like, they didn't necessarily have a lot of offensive juice early on. Like, I thought that first quarter was, the Cavs could have been winning by way more than just 2. I believe it was 25-23 at the end of the first quarter. They could have been winning by way more because they were creating shots and they weren't making them. And I do think that this group is a little bit offensively challenged, primarily because it doesn't have somebody that I look at and say, yes, that is like the point guard in that lineup. And I don't love lineups that have Donovan playing point guard. And a lot of the numbers do back that up. Like, just their offense is not as good when he's the sole guard on the floor. Or, I mean, I guess if you want to call Jalen Tyson a 2 guard, you can. I think of him more as a wing. But the offensive lineups with Donovan and point guard are just not all that great. And this one isn't either. Like, they're in the 124 possessions they played, their offensive rating is 113.7. That's 35th percentile. Like, that is not championship level offense. For as good as they are defensively, they're not good enough offensively. So that leads me to this, basically, because I do think that there's an interesting conversation at some point coming with the starting 5. And there are a number of different ways I think Kenny Atkinson can go. But I think the thing that's most important right now is, until Darius Garland gets back, this, provided that everybody stays healthy, because that has been, the thing that doesn't happen for the Cavs this year. This should be the starting lineup that the Cavs have until Darius Garland is back on the floor. They don't need to change this. And I realize that Sam Merrill is coming back, and it's going to be hard for you to find a bigger believer in Sam than me. Like, I think that he brings a lot of really good things to the floor, but I think at this point he's better off coming off the bench for the Cavs. I think it's better for him, and I think it's better for the Cavs as a group. And I think part of the reason why it's better for the Cavs as a group is it's really difficult. And part of the reason why the Cavs have struggled, it's not the only reason, part of the reason why they've struggled, and part of the reason why they were so good last year, was the continuity they had. And I don't want to necessarily make this about injuries, but it's about combinations, if anything else. So last season, the Cavs had 100, and this is a stat that's floating around with a few other teams right now. Last season, the Cavs had 168 games lost due to player injury. They had 168 instances of a player missing a game because of an injury or illness. On Monday night, they will at least tie that, if not surpass that, as long as Darius doesn't play and Max doesn't play, because they're 166 games entering Monday. So they will tie it, and if DeAndre or Sam does not play, they will surpass it. So that has led to the Cavs needing to try out a lot of different combinations. And even when the Cavs had these injuries last year, well, let's think about what the roster looked like at this point last year. No, they didn't deal with significant injuries, but everybody that was on the team at this point last year was on the team at this point the year before. Like, they didn't make big roster changes going into last season. They had continuity, and this year they've been trying to work in so many different pieces and so many different combinations that it has been something that I do think has slowed them down. Now, I do think that they believe there will be a benefit to that later on, and we will have to wait and see if that rings true. But that's also why I think when you discover something that's good, and this should not be the starting lineup forever. When Darius Garland gets back, he obviously slides into one of those slots. And then I think there's an interesting conversation to be had about who the fifth starter should be, because there are some really good numbers for a couple of guys. There are not so good numbers for another guy. But they have continuity right now. And that's something that shouldn't be taken for granted. So I do think my advice would be keep this starting lineup until you have to make a change because Darius is back. Don't change it for Sam. Don't put DeAndre back in the starting lineup. Even if and when Max gets back from his foot injury, he should be coming off the bench at least at the start. Let this group roll for a little bit. Let's see what this starting lineup can do together, because it's been sort of a curse for the Cavs that they've had 24 different starting lineups this season. Number 24 has been pretty good so far. They should keep running that starting lineup back until they're forced to make a change. Now, ultimately, they will have to make a change because Darius Garland will be back. When he does get back, should Dean Wade be the fifth starter, or should Jalen Tyson be the fifth starter? We'll discuss that, plus look ahead to this upcoming week next right here on Locked On Cavs. But first, today's show is brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing like being in an NBA arena. The crowd, the energy, the moment. Getting tickets, though, that part, not always quite as simple. And that's why Game Time has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast without the hassle. Puts the advantage back where it belongs, with the fans. You can pull up the Game Time app, pick an upcoming NBA game like, Monday night's game between the Cavs and the Magic, or Wednesday night's game. The Los Angeles Lakers are in town. You want to be in the building because it could be the last time. I don't want to say what it could be because I don't want it to be the last time, but it could be the last time. And you want to make sure that you're there. And Game Time is the place to make sure that you're there. Plus, they have the all-in price up front. There's not going to be surprise fees at checkout. You won't be surprised because, I thought I was going to pay this amount for a ticket, and now I have to pay actually almost twice as much. That's not how it works with Game Time. They take the guesswork out of buying tickets. So what you need to do is download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. That's code Locked On, LOCKEDON, for $20 off that first purchase with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, and remember, it's gametime.co, not gametime.com. Thank you again for making today's edition of Locked On Cavs your first watch on YouTube. If you're watching right now, please do us a favor, hit that thumbs up button for us, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. And the Cavs will, at some point, make a change to their starting lineup. Darius Garland will be back, and he will be put right back in the starting lineup as he should be. And the Cavs will have to make a decision as far as who that fifth starter goes, because the four starters that we know are going to be the four starters are Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, and Jarrett Allen. But who the fifth starter is a very interesting thought exercise here, because four guys so far this year have played significant minutes alongside Donovan and Darius and Evan and Jarrett, the core four plus that rotating cast of who's number five. And there have been different outcomes. A lot of them have been positive, but not all of them have been positive. So the four guys this year that have played alongside the core four have been DeAndre Hunter, Dean Wade, Jalen Tyson, and Sam Merrill. And I think that this is shaping up to be a debate between, should the Cavs keep Dean Wade in the starting lineup, or should the Cavs keep Jalen Tyson in the starting lineup? And they provide different things. One is, I think, a better defender in Dean Wade, and I think Jalen Tyson is more helpful to who the Cavs are offensively, because I think he's a more aggressive offensive player, and I think that he is a better shooter right now, the stats say, than Dean Wade, although I do think Dean is a better shooter than what his percentages say so far this season. So I went and looked up the numbers, because neither of them, they both have played alongside the core four, but neither of them has this overwhelmingly large sample size. So some of this is just small sample size theater type stuff. So Dean Wade this year has played 36 possessions. These numbers are all according to Cleaning the Glass, by the way. Dean Wade has played 36 possessions alongside the core four this season. The Cavs are plus 19.4 per 100 possessions. So their net rating is plus 19.4 with Dean Wade alongside the core four. That is because offensively, they're really good. They're at 130.6 offensive rating, 111.1 defensive rating. So they're very good defensively as well. Now, Jalen Tyson, who has played exactly twice as many possessions alongside the core four as Dean Wade has, he's played 72 possessions with that group. The Cavs net rating is plus 42.9 in those 72 possessions. That is obviously incredible. Now, offensively, it's slightly better than having Dean Wade in, which is not necessarily what you would have guessed, because I think of Dean Wade as the better defensive player and Jalen Tyson the better offensive player. And an offensive rating of 131.9 is off the charts having Jalen Tyson on the floor, but Dean Wade's being 130, I think does say like how important Darius Garland is to this group, how good Donovan Mitchell can be when he's surrounded with the right pieces, because that's not necessarily always the case given the structure of this roster. But then I look at the numbers with Jalen Tyson, plus 42.9 net rating, offensive rating of 131.9. The defensive rating with Jalen Tyson plus the core four is 89. They are allowing 89 points per 100 possessions. Now, how sustainable is that? Not very. Like the Cavs are not going to, like this lineup is not going to get to 400 possessions and that still be the defensive rating. At some point that will correct to the mean, but that is awesome. And that's kind of why, and I think when you pair that with some of the stuff that Jalen has done, I do think it can be a debate, because you almost wonder, well, would we like to see Jalen Tyson have a bigger offensive role where he can be out there with only one of Donovan or Darius, so he can shoulder more of that load offensively? Or would you rather have Dean Wade, who is a far lower usage player? And, you know, I don't know that I want to say complements those guys better, but he's a bigger defender. He's a bigger body. Like, which of these numbers, because they're like the eye test is said for both that they're awesome, right? But which of these is the most sustainable? And I do wonder if the numbers with Wade, even though they are in a smaller sample size, are more sustainable numbers than the ones with Tyson, not because of the offense. I think the Cavs, if they have the core four on the floor, I think they can find a way to put out an elite offense. They've not had that group on the floor enough this year. That's why offensively they've not been as good as they were last year, because their best players haven't played as much. Crazy how that works. But defensively, I don't know how long this defensive rating with Tyson can keep up. Now, I do think that there's a strong case to be made either way. I think that is going to be one of the tougher decisions. One of the decisions I don't think is that tough is not having Sam Merrill in with that group, because he's really the only player. And again, all of this stuff is small sample size, but Sam is really the only player with the core four that's not been successful, because even DeAndre's numbers, like the Cavs, when DeAndre Hunter's with the core four, the Cavs are a plus, I believe it is a plus 22. I don't have it pulled up right in front of me. I believe it's a plus 22 per 100 possessions with DeAndre Hunter alongside the core four this year, which again is a smaller sample size thing, primarily because Darius Garland has missed so much time this year. But like there are a lot of good numbers that say the core four is still really, really good. Yes. So it's been 117 possessions that DeAndre Hunter has played alongside that core four. Cavs are plus 22.2. There are two lineups that have been really bad. Sam Merrill at small forward with that group in 105 possessions is a minus 17.9. And Craig Porter Jr. shifting Donovan Mitchell to small forward was a minus 104.2 net rating in 20 possessions. That was the Minnesota game. And that should never be seen ever again, because that lineup was really, really bad. But the one other thing I wanted to touch on before we get out of here for today's show is how important the first two games this week are. So the Cavs on Monday obviously take on the Orlando Magic. As I mentioned earlier, it's the second game of two straight against the Magic. They won the first one on Saturday. If they find a way to win this one on Monday, I think it'd be a really big win. It would push the Cavs to 8 games above 500, which would be a new high water mark for the season. Would also continue to create some space between the Cavs and the play-in. And, you know, they are a team that, as I mentioned, is closer to second in the Eastern Conference than they are seventh in the Eastern Conference right now, at least by like distance between. So I do think that finding ways to continue to stack wins matters. Now, Wednesday night I am sure is going to be another emotional night inside Rocket Arena, because it's always an emotional night when LeBron James plays against the Cavs. The Lakers are a team that has won a lot of basketball games, but I don't think is very good. Now, they might be getting Austin Reeves back for that game, and I will be having Andy Kamenetsky from Locked On Lakers on the podcast a little bit later on this week before that game to take a preview of it. But the Lakers have actually their net rating is in the negative, despite the fact they have a better record than the Cavs right now. But these are two games that are very, very winnable. And then the Cavs will head out west for their longest road trip of the year. They will be out west for 11 days. They will play 5 games, starting on Friday against the Phoenix Suns. Now, the Suns are not going to have Devin Booker in that game. He sprained his ankle, I believe, this past Friday against the Atlanta Hawks, and he's going to be reevaluated 1 week from now, which tells you that the Cavs are not going to see Devin Booker again this year. And then they've got Portland, they've got the Clippers on this trip. I believe they have the Kings on this trip, and then they close it up with the Denver Nuggets. Like, this is not the most difficult West Conference road trip in the world, especially with Devin Booker out. Like, if he were there, the Suns are way more formidable than they are without him. I guess we'll see how they play, but just like, that's a tougher team, obviously, when Devin Booker's on the floor. But they have an opportunity to continue to stack these wins. And I think that winning 2 games before they head out west would go a long way in making sure that they're in a good mind state and feeling good about themselves, really, really good about themselves for the first time this year. That would have them on a 5-game winning streak. That would mean they would have won 12 out of 16 games. Like, a lot of things would be trending in the right direction. So they have to take care of business. They're going to be favored in both these games at home. They can take care of business. There's a lot to feel good about before the Cavs go out west, truly out west, for the first time this season. Now, that's going to do it for today's edition of Locked On Cavs. I appreciate you hanging out with me right here, wherever you get your podcast. It's Apple, it's Spotify. Make sure you're subscribed to those places. And if you're watching on YouTube as we get out of here, please hit the thumbs up button and the notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. And I will be back tomorrow after the Cavs take on the Orlando Magic.